Hello guys, I'm John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and welcome back to Mr. Robot. Season 4, we're at episode 4, and things are getting more and more interesting as they do every week. This time around we have a bit of a different kind of episode, especially if you compare to last week, but before we get into spoilers, I'll talk the first couple of minutes spoiler free as always, and I'll give you a warning beforehand when I dive into spoilers. So let's go. Okay, so this episode again is a bit different to last week's episode, meaning that this time around it concentrates a lot more on the characters again. So there isn't that much plot development in this episode. So we mainly have like three sort of storylines we're following. We're following Darlene, what she's doing, Dominique, the FBI agent woman, and what Elliot and Tyrell are up to after last week's ending. Like, the only kind of plot development we sort of have is basically just with Elliot and Tyrell, but even then, not that much happens, so there's a stronger focus on like character building, looking into what is keeping those characters busy, what they're up to, what they're thinking about, especially with Darlene. I think it's very interesting that we get to see what her sort of thoughts are. She never really utters, or what kind of things she deals with. And with Dom, I'm not quite sure because I don't want to say I didn't like her part in this episode, but it was definitely the part I was the most confused about at the end, which was not only due to the fact that I was wondering, okay, what did we actually just see, and also why did I just watch this? So, but I honestly had this feeling with almost every part, like every storyline we were following. Like I said, there isn't a heck of a lot of plot development in this, so I feel like this is a bit of a weaker episode, especially if you compare it to the other ones in this season. Nevertheless, it's still a good episode. Like, Mr. Robot doesn't really have bad episodes. But, if you're, like me, more of a friend of, plot heavier episodes where you want a bit more to happen, then you might not enjoy this episode as much as last week's episode. But nevertheless, there's some interesting stuff in there. And once again, the last couple of minutes, like the last 10-15 minutes, are just a treasure to behold in regards to acting, character development, and story development. Like at the end, I once again just sat there thinking, what the hell are you doing to me, Mr. Robot? How am I supposed to deal with this until next week? So overall, okay episode, bit weaker than what we saw last week. Nevertheless, some interesting stuff there. The acting was very good again this episode, especially from Rami Malek and the guy who plays Tyrell. I'm not quite sure what his name was, Martin Wallstrom or something like that. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. But yeah, especially these two I liked a lot in this episode. But every character shines a bit in this episode, and if you're a friend of like character development episodes, and if you love to just look inside characters' heads and want to know what they're thinking, this is a very good episode for you. Okay, that's it for the spoiler-free part. I'm gonna jump into spoilers for the episode now, so if you haven't seen the episode yet, turn the video off now. Okay, so I think I'm going to go through every like storyline separately just because it's a bit easier to do that way. And let's start with the one I already mentioned was the most irritating to me by the end of this episode, namely the one concerning Dominique, so Dom, the FBI woman. So the thing is, by the end of the episode, I was thinking, why did I watch this? Because, I like her character and I find her very interesting, especially her dealing with the Dark Army and all that. But, I was wondering what was that for? Like, we see her basically chatting online, and she kind of looks at, what I thought was interesting, she looks at pictures of Darlene while she's masturbating, and I thought, oh, that's interesting, so she still thinks about her in that way, like, Darlene has definitely left an impact on her. And, like, she chats to what she thinks is a guy on that, like, sex chat line thing, and she admits that she isn't really into guys anymore, and that she's into women, and then her text partner says, "Oh, I'm actually a woman too," and I thought that something, I don't know. I immediately had like alarm bells going on in my head. I was like, what if they're lying? Something's fishy. And as we learn later, there is something fishy. Okay, it actually turns out to be a one, which I first thought, okay, fine, seems to be okay. And you know, they seem to have a connection. It goes off to a good start, and they start making out and everything. And then Dom like wants to take a short break and goes to the bathroom, and then we see that the entire bathroom has like been romantically decorated with like rose petals and candles and everything. And immediately I was like, oh shit, I knew it, I called it, because then we see her date coming in with like the Dark Army mask and like push her down into the water of the bathtub, and I thought, I knew it, I knew there was something wrong with that woman. And so like, she pushes her down, saying some stuff, you know, how she didn't do things right, and you know, the usual Dark Army shtick. And I thought, holy shit, are they actually doing that? Are they killing off Dom? Are they like drowning her? And you see her drown, and then, but like, the moment you would assume she drowns, she opens her eyes, and it cuts, and we're back in her bedroom, like at the beginning of the episode, and we see the same text messages on her screen, and we realize, oh, so she actually just fell asleep. And I was like, so was all of that just a bad dream? If so, wow, quite an elaborate bad dream. But also, like, she gets up and goes to check the bathroom, and you know, it looks relatively normal. But then we get a shot of the bathtub, and I just saw some candles still there on like the windowsill next to the bathtub. So I thought, did this still sort of happen? Like, because I don't know. To me, it felt a bit vague. I was like, did this really happen now? Because if it did, a bit confusing, to be honest. Also because I didn't understand, why would the Dark Army try to kill her now, since she didn't really do anything? And if it was like a nightmare, like I already mentioned, quite an elaborate nightmare. Like, also quite long. Like, it's a bit hard to figure out where it starts and like where it becomes a dream, sort of. And I don't know, just something felt off about it. By the end of the episode, I thought, okay, this was interesting because I like her, but why the hell did I just watch this? Because it didn't really contribute anything to the overall plot of the show. Unless the dream was real and she was threatened by the Dark Army again. But then again, why did she get threatened? Like, what did she do wrong? What was the problem there? I just had a bit of a hard time figuring out what they wanted me to go on there, like what they wanted me to think. And I was a bit, I'm not sure if I want to say disappointed, but you know, I felt a bit let down because I didn't feel satisfied with that storyline in this episode. I was like, oh, so was that just there to fill some time, like for filler? Because to be quite honest, that's what it felt a bit like at some points, especially towards the end after we realize it's a dream, apparently. And I thought, so what was this about then? Like, we'll have to see if it gets addressed in next week's episode or some future episode, because if it doesn't, I'm wondering what the heck, why, just why. Okay, the other storyline we were following in this episode was Darlene, which was a mixture of slightly weird and also interesting. Like, we see her being very, very upset with Elliot. Like, her opening scene was very strong. Like, she is on the phone, and we see her, like, cursing and, like, telling Elliot honestly on the phone what she thinks of him, that she thinks he's an asshole for how he treats her. She basically tells him, well, go and commit suicide. I want you to die. I was like, whoa! Girl, take a step back. Like, I know he's not always nice to you, but wow. Like, I honestly, for the first 2 minutes, I thought, what the hell are you saying, woman? But then it cuts, and we see her being like a bit more calm and normal. and she dials again and just basically says, "Yeah, hi Elliot, it's me. Could you like call me back?" And then we realize, oh, so this is basically what she actually wants to tell him, or what she thinks about, but she never really finds the courage or like the honesty to actually tell him that she feels like this about him, or she feels bad about the way she's being treated. So I thought it was actually quite interesting, and it's something I would like to see come back in later episodes, because you see how actually like angry she actually is about Elliot, how frustrated, how she really like how she really feels, and I want that to come back. I don't want her to just keep it inside of her all the time. Like I get that like that's a good idea for her having this as a problem, because like she also says later in the episode, Elliot is the last person she really has in her life, like someone she can trust, someone who's a friend. But she also feels so strongly about him in so many ways, and I hope that in a later episode she can actually tell him all of that. Like, because I like Elliot, but sometimes he maybe does need a telling off, especially from Darlene. Like, she deserves to be treated a bit better by him sometimes. She's right about that. And I want her to have this moment where she actually gets to tell him how she truly feels about everything. Okay, so after that nice scene, we see her hacking into, I don't know, she like breaks into someone's car and wants to do some computer stuff, and then we see a drunk man in a Father Christmas outfit, and it's it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And like, he comes at her and he's all drunk, and he's like, "What are you doing? That's my car." And she's like, "And it's fine, it's fine." Wants to leave, and basically get into a conversation like he wants to drive the car, but he can't find his car keys, and she basically says, "Okay, I'm gonna drive you home because you're too drunk to drive. I'm gonna drive you home. Then I get to borrow your car for a couple of hours." They say yes, and they get into the car together, and they get talking while they are on this little road trip. And the man, his name's Tobias, and he talks a bit about his life and what he does. That he works at like a cancer ward, a hospital for children, where he like plays for the Christmas and all that. And he says that his wife can't come with him anymore since she had an accident, and he kind of mentions like that he might be suicidal and stuff like that. We see him having some drugs, so they kind of get talking, and by the end of that road trip, they get home. They realize, which I thought was fucking hilarious, they realize that the car they're in isn't actually Tobias's car, because they drive towards his house, and in the driveway there's his car. And they're like, "Whose car is that? And whose car are we sitting in right now?" So obviously they stole the car, basically. And, Darlene gets a bit upset and all that. And she lets him out and then realizes, oh, maybe I shouldn't leave him alone. Gets out and is like, "I worry about you. I know it might seem weird since we don't really know each other, but I don't want you to be alone since you seem to be suicidal and you're alone and your wife died." And in a twist I honestly could have seen coming, if I'm being honest, Tobias says, "Girl, what are you on about? Like, my wife had an accident, yes, but she just can't leave the house at the moment, but she's still inside. Like, I'm fine. I'm just quoting movies and quoting sad books. I'm fine. I just got pissed with my friends, and that's it." And you can see Darlene getting really, really upset and frustrated and worried. And um, Tobias sort of offers her, "Well, you can tell me what's wrong with you," since he kind of realizes I'm not actually the one with the problems. She's the one who has problems. So after a couple of seconds, Darlene actually decides that she kind of wants to rant about what's been going on with her, and she gets out and basically like what we saw at the beginning of the episode. She rants about how much she worries about Elliot, that she thinks he might be dead. She can't reach him because there's no like reception in the area they're in, and she doesn't feel, she feels mistreated by him, but she also cares about him very much since, like I said, he's her only friend at this point, and she wants to protect him, but she also kind of wants to tell him off at sometimes. So like she's basically being honest to Tobias, and it's kind of a nice idea that you think, oh, this is sort of about this guy, that Darlene cares about him instead of Elliot in this instance, and then it kind of turns around, which I thought was quite nice, and then we get to see her reflecting on what she's actually thinking about, what her problems are, what she wants to do, and Tobias tells her that it's nice that she worries about her brother, but she also has to look out for herself sometimes. And the last thing we see of her, I think, in the episode is when she drives down the street back to New York again, and she has like this fit or something, and she stops the car, gets super angry, and we see her scream in frustration, and that's it. Like she sort of has this realization where she realized, okay, I like my brother, but I also can't always worry about him. I have to look out for myself. Do I worry about Elliot? Do I stick with him, or do I also, to a certain degree, just look out for myself and try to stay safe and not get involved in this any further? So maybe in the next couple of episodes we'll be seeing her kind of trying to deal with her feelings for Elliot, her frustration there, and her kind of struggling with that fight she wants to be part of, but also maybe wants to get out of as well, since she kind of has to learn to take care of herself as well. So I don't know. It was very interesting to see her reflect on her emotions, but at the same time, and again, I have to be honest here. Like my personal point of view is, it wasn't very again that storyline wasn't very plot heavy. It was purely about her character and her development as a person. But once again, at the end, not as much as with Dominique's storyline, but again, at the end, I was like, how much was this really necessary? I'm not saying that it's not interesting. It was definitely more interesting than Dominique's storyline, I'll admit that. But, again, it doesn't really further the plot that much. Unless, the character decisions she makes in this come back in a future episode, which I'm assuming is going to happen. At least that's what I hope happens. But once again, sometimes I was wondering, why the hell am I watching this? How is this important, and why do I have to listen to this drunk Father Christmas? It's just, again, it was important for Darlene. We get to see what's going on with her, but I don't know if it's because basically all the other stuff that happened with Elliot and Tyrell was so much more interesting and so much more important and actually relevant to the plot of the show, that I kind of thought with the other two storylines, well, why are they here? Which brings me to the third storyline, the most interesting one, Elliot and Tyrell. It picks up right after last week's episode. We see the Dark Army guy listening in on them, and we can hear Elliot and Tyrell doing some talking, and they're tricking the guy, and they actually go down to his van, and we see Tyrell hitting him with a hammer, and it turns out, oh, probably killed that guy. Problem. And they take the van, and I'm assuming to get rid of the body and all the evidence and all that, because they don't want the Dark Army to know what has been going on. And they take the van, they get to a petrol station or something, fill up the petrol, and they... the lady there, the cashier, oh my god, that woman, so annoying. She's like one of those elderly, very talkative ladies, and she thinks that she has seen Tyrell somewhere, and it's like, I've seen you somewhere, haven't I? And Tyrell tries to be like, no, you haven't seen me, you're mistaking me for somebody else. And the lady just doesn't get to the point. So they want to pay for the petrol and everything, and for a lighter. Turns out the phones don't work there, because Elliot wants to pay with his phone, but turns out that since there's no internet, no reception, no nothing, phones and messages, internet they don't work, which is a problem, obviously. And it becomes evident as soon as Tyrell and Elliot go back out, and they realize, shit, the van's gone, with the Dark Army guy inside, since they thought, oh, he was actually dead, but turns out he wasn't, and he drove the van away. And, well, problem. And they go back inside, and they ask the lady where's the next town, since they need to get reception on their phones, to deal with this. And the lady, after an excruciatingly long and annoying conversation, tells them that there's a shortcut through the woods. so he can get to the next town. And I was so like Mr. Robot in that situation because, Tyrell and Elliot, they both are like, oh my god, can that woman just tells them. Then Mr. Robot just completely freaks out. It's like, oh my god, shut up, woman, and tell us what's going on. I'm like, thank you. Finally, someone said it. So after the old lady realizes that she's actually talking to Tyrell Wellick, hooray, famous person, she tells him about the shortcut, and they make their way through the woods. And this is where the best part of this episode begins. Tyrell and Elliot on a road trip basically through the woods while they're trying not to get lost or freeze to death. And that's what I meant when I said earlier, I absolutely love the acting again in this episode. Like, just Tyrell and Elliot are so much fun together, and I love the chemistry between their characters. It's very, very interesting and very dynamic. And I like just the whole cinematography during those scenes when they're in the woods, in the snow, and you have like this bluish grey sort of sky going on in the background with like the lights, and just the cinematography during those scenes was absolutely gorgeous. So they make their way through the woods and basically talk about the things you might assume they talk about. Tyrell gets worried that because the old lady recognized him, she's like, oh, brilliant, she's gonna be able to ID me. And then they start worrying, oh, the Dark Army might already know what's going on since the guy stole the van. And they're probably waiting for us in the next town. And are we even gonna get there? Because it turns out that Tyrell probably did not take the right shortcut. And they have this classic bickering couple conversation about not going the right way. And it's absolutely hilarious, just because I love the way to interact in this scene. I absolutely love it. Like, again, with wonderful switches between Elliot and Mr. Robot, and Tyrell basically talking to him the same no matter what happens, and they go through being friendly, being not very nice to each other, being absolutely pissed off at each other, like through all the classic emotions you have on a road trip where you don't know where you're actually going. So yeah, I absolutely love those scenes when they were talking together. They were quite interesting, and I'm pretty sure the shippers are gonna be happy as well because it's a very heavy episode. Like, they get most of the screen time in this, so good for those people. And they sort of make their way through the woods and think they are near a road finally, and like run towards the noise of the cars they hear come out of the woods onto the street, only to realise, which, is a classic, but I thought it was hilarious nevertheless, only to realise that they are back at the petrol station, even though they've been walking for what they say are hours. I thought that was so freaking funny. Also, Elliot has a very sweet scene when he talks to Tyrell, and Tyrell asks him, why are you doing this? Why are you still so determined? We're basically gonna die. And Elliot, just for like a minute, gets super emotional and admits that he's doing this because of Darlene. Because at least he wants to warn her that something might happen and give her the chance to survive. And I thought that was a very sweet scene. It was very well acted by Rami Malek, because I thought we rarely see Elliot so emotional, actually to the brink of like crying when he's talking to others and when he admits something to himself. And I thought that was a very nice, like, sort of moment of self-reflection as to why he's even doing this, why he cares. And I just appreciate the scenes a lot where I basically get Elliot honestly admitting to what's driving him and honestly being emotional in front of others, but especially with himself. So I thought that was a very, very sweet and very emotional scene. Okay, so they decide to walk down the street instead of through the woods in order to get to that other town, and they get more and more frustrated and angry with, like, at each other with what's been going on with the Dark Army and that van and Tyrell killing their guy. So everyone gets more and more pissed off. Tyrell gets super upset and very frustrated and worried to like a point where he just wants to give up and like sits down as like, I don't even care what's going on. The Dark Army probably already knows they're gonna kill us. Like, there's no use to this. Like, Tyrell basically has this complete letdown. And over this episode, also like kind of thought about his relationship towards Elliot and what Elliot even thinks of him. And he directly asks him, which I thought was quite interesting. He directly asks him, have you ever even cared about me? Because he addresses the hoodie Elliot always wears, because he says you always wear the same clothes, and it's because, I know why, it's because you don't care, do you? And this comes back later when he says, it's just the same as with your clothes, it's the same with me, you don't care about me, right? And he like pushes him for an answer, and Elliot doesn't really want to talk about it. He's like, mate, what the hell are you talking about? We need to move on. But like, Tyrell pushes it, and then Elliot just completely fucking snaps. And it's like, no, I never cared about you. And it gets like super angry, like curses and screams at him. For a second, I honestly thought for a second, did he just switch personalities in that moment? Because, we're not really used to seeing Elliot properly freak out like this in this sort of aggressive way. Like, we always hear or know that he apparently has anger problems, since that's also what he was in therapy for initially, I think. But like, our proper Elliot never really completely like shouts and freaks out on people, like not to that degree. Like, if you've seen the episode, you know what I mean. So I thought for a second, did something happen there? Like, I don't know, it's just the feeling I had that for maybe a minute or so Elliot switched so he could, I don't know, tell Tyrell off or whatever. I just thought it was quite interesting also because you can Tyrell actually see him being like, fuck, he doesn't care about me. Knew it. And I was actually like, oh no. But you have this kind of classic realization because Elliot wants to leave him behind, and Tyrell's like, yeah, just go on, I don't need you, I'm just gonna stay here and give up. And then you kind of see Elliot reconsidering, and he walks back and he's like, no, come on, man, I can't leave you. I don't know why, but I kind of care about you, so we have to move on. Which I thought was quite interesting because he admits to not really caring about him 5 minutes earlier, but then says, I can't just leave you here. So I like this dynamic. Like, it's very paradoxical to a certain degree, right? Where he admits to not caring about him at all, but also can't leave him behind. So he goes back and is like, I don't know, I just want you to come along. So so he kind of motivates him to come along with him again, and they walk down the street, and they find the van, like the white van that was apparently driven away by the dog army guy, and it like slid off the road somewhere because it hit a deer. And they kind of make a sign to say, okay, I'm gonna go down that way and you're gonna go the other way, and they kind of like move in on him. And we follow Elliot as he moves to the van. He sees the dog army guy behind the wheel. The dog army guy is still alive, manages to fire a couple of shots, doesn't hit Elliot. We hear some rumbling and shots, and seems to be fine. And Elliot like kind of walks around the other way to see what Tyrell's been up to. And that was already the second I started to get really, really worried. Like, he walks around the van, Tyrell has it back to him, and Elliot's like, mate, are you alright, Tyrell? Talk to me. Are you hurt? And then it happens what I thought had happened. Tyrell turns around and he like has a gun wound like right here, like he got shot. And it doesn't look too bad at first, but it's a gunshot wound. It's not good. And I already thought, no, don't do this to me, people. I like this man. Don't do this. And it's just, it gets worse. And also slightly irritating from here on. So like Tyrell says, you just gotta move on, Elliot, go back. And Elliot is like, I can't leave you behind, I can't. And basically Tyrell says, leave him behind so I can die. I'm only gonna drag you down if you take me with you. And Elliot doesn't actually want him to leave, but Tyrell just says like, I'm gonna go for a walk, and like with this gunshot wound, and he like goes off into the mist, and we see him walk away. And the episode ends with him walking through the woods, and he like holds his wound. It gets worse and worse, and there's this strange sort of purple lighting going on. And at first I just thought, oh, there's like artistic choice, cinematography, kind of cool. But no, he actually like comes through the woods, walks towards the screen basically, and the purple lighting gets really, really strong, and he looks at it. Like, apparently there's something right in front of him on the ground, and he looks at it in this purple light, and then the episode flashes out into white, and the episode ends. And I thought, what the hell, people? What the fucking hell was this? Because if you kill off my man, if you kill him off, or at least if you kill him off already, I'm gonna be angry because I like him. Like, I don't want Tyrell to die. Like, for the last 5 minutes, I was like, no, 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 don't do this, don't do this. I like my man. Please don't kill him off already. Also, like, I kind of have hopes because we don't see him die. The gunshot wound doesn't look too fatal, but you know, he's in the woods. It's pretty cold. So I don't know. But then, like, he looks at this weird purple light, and he looks like he's kind of having an epiphany or something, or I don't know what he's looking at. And then the episode ends. You know, it had this Pulp Fiction sort of feeling, where you don't know what's in the briefcase, but it's this fancy light, and you think it must be something really, really cool. I thought, what the hell is this purple light in the snow in the woods in the middle of nowhere, and Tyrell is about to die? Like, what's going on? I have absolutely no idea, but I honestly think, to, let's say, 70%, that he's not dead, or at least not yet, because we don't see him die. And like I said, the wound doesn't look too fatal. But you know, I'm always thinking, if I don't see someone die on screen, they're not officially dead and they could always come back. So yeah, once again, this episode just leaves us with the feeling of what the heck did I just watch and what the hell is going to happen next week. And I have to say, overall, this is probably the weakest episode of this season so far, just because, you know, 2 of the 3 storylines we're watching, I was wondering, why the hell are they even in here? Why should I care? Like, I know I do care, because, like I said, I like the characters and all that, but, you know, it's just a bit weaker. It wasn't very plot heavy, and a lot of the stuff that was happening, I was wondering, how is this important? I mean, I don't know, maybe it's gonna get addressed in the future episode, I don't know. It's just that I thought, okay, I do appreciate, like, calmer episodes and times where I do a bit of character study, but, you know, just the stuff with Tyrell and Elliot was interesting, but the other 2 storylines, I was wondering, nah, do I really need to see this right now? So, not a bad episode, but not as good as past episodes we have seen. But nevertheless, like I said, this episode leaves me wondering what the hell is going to happen next week. I just want to know. I want to know what happens to my man Tyrell. Like I said, I hope he's not dead. I kind of think he's not dead. If we gonna get an explanation as to what the hell that weird purple light was, and then we're probably gonna see next week that Elliot hopefully gets into town and gets some reception so he can talk to Darlene, or that Darlene finds him, or, you know, that people are able to communicate again. Okay, so those are my thoughts on the episode. What are your thoughts on this week's episode? Put something down in the comments below. I've recently realised that a lot of people seem to be interested in my Mr. Robot reviews, which I do appreciate, so thank you very much for watching my weird, geeky, exciting reviews that I do. I try to keep them up on this pace as best I can. Like, I usually try to watch the episode right after I get home on Mondays, and then immediately film the review after watching it, which is why I'm always so excited and a bit all over the place. But you people seem to like it, so I appreciate that, and thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done it already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.